Hi book lovers, welcome back to my channel. So every year I have done a color themed reads video where I read a bunch of books that have the same color cover. Last year I did blue, and then before that I did yellow. So this year I decided to read a bunch of pink books, pink releases, because there have been a lot of them so far this year. So let's just jump into it. The first book that I read was The True Love Experiment by Christina Lauren. This was actually pretty good. I really liked it. I gave it 4 stars. It was a very cute read, a very cute romance. It's not like a new favorite of mine from Christina Lauren, but still thoroughly enjoyable. This is a standalone, but it's also a spin-off of the Soulmate Equation. The heroine here was the best friend from the Soulmate Equation, and I actually like this one more than the other book. We have a loud, feisty romance author for a heroine who doesn't quite believe in romance or love anymore. Fizzy's last relationship ended up being a total mess, so she is trying to stay single now until she gets invited to be the lead of this reality dating TV show, which is basically like The Bachelorette. But instead of Fizzy choosing which guy to vote off every week, she leaves it up to the audience to vote the guys off. So it's a very fun, interactive TV show, and what I love about it is that each guy is based off some sort of hero archetype. We have the hot nerd, the one that got away, things like that. So it was a really fun concept. They played around with Fizzy being a romance author, and the hero is actually not one of the guys on the show. He's not one of the contestants. He's actually the lead producer of the show. Connor is hot, British, and a single dad, and he would have played the DILF character very well on the show, but he's not in it. He's behind the camera, and he is a very sweet guy. He is the total opposite of Fizzy, who is very extroverted and outgoing, which makes her perfect for the show. But Connor likes to keep to himself, take care of his daughter, and do his job. He originally was not supposed to do this reality dating show because that's just not who he is. He was a guy who made documentaries, but because of his company, he was forced to do the show. The romance is a bit of friends to lovers because Connor and Fizzy do form a friendship. They have a rocky start, but eventually do grow close. It's really cute with all their quips and banter, but you can also feel that simmering tension between them. They try to resist because Connor does not do casual sex and Fizzy is only looking for that. And you know, she's also trying to find her true love on the True Love Experiment show. So there's a slight forbidden aspect to the romance, which does make it a little bit more exciting. And I thought it was really fun how they got into the whole romance book world because of what Fizzy does. I do feel like Connor may have been a little too perfect in this book though. He's just a sweet and wholesome guy with barely any faults. He does come out with a secret, something awful that he did at the end of his marriage to the mother of his child, but that was a decade ago, and now he has this fantastic relationship with his ex-wife. But I did really enjoy this one overall. I adored Fizzy and her silliness and her heart, and I really liked how the romance played out. So if you like the Soulmate Equation, you should read The True Love Experiment. If you did not like the Soulmate Equation, you should still read The True Love Experiment. And then my next pink read was one of my most anticipated reads of the year from one of my all-time favorite authors. It is Happy Place by Emily Henry. For this one, no one is more devastated than me that I didn't love this book. I gave this one 3.5 stars. Happy Place is easily the weakest Emily Henry romance for me, and it's so sad because I was so hyped for it. It has all the good tropes. It has my favorite trope, second chance romance, but it was a bit of a letdown. So in this one, the main characters had been in a relationship for about a decade until 6 months ago when they broke up, or more like when the hero broke up with the heroine because she definitely did not expect it. Harriet and Wynne are part of this 6-person friend group who every year they go on this vacation together to this cottage in Maine, and neither of them have told their friends that they're not together anymore. And now the vacation in Maine is coming up and they have to pretend to still be together. They have to pretend to still be a couple and still be in love because one of the other couples in their group plans to get married during their trip, and this is actually going to be the last trip for the 6 of them set at this cottage. So Wynne and Harriet decide to keep the facade going because they don't want to ruin this wedding or this trip. So we have a second chance romance, fake dating, forced proximity with them sharing a same room and the same bed. It all sounded so perfect, but it just missed the mark for me. I mean, it wasn't bad. I still really love Emily Henry's writing, but this is her least funny book too. Even with heavy topics in her books, I can always expect, you know, some humor, some wit, but this one didn't have much of that. It was actually kind of a sad read. In present day, there's this dread hanging around Win and Harriet about having to be around each other when they don't want to be, when they shouldn't want to be because they're broken up. And then in the past timeline, there's also some more dread, this time because you know things are gonna go wrong in their 10-year relationship and they're gonna end up broken up. And yes, this is like People We Meet on Vacation, where we have the past and present timelines alternating, but it just wasn't as good as it was in People We Meet on Vacation. Like, that book I loved so much, and the alternating chapters were so well done, but here it just wasn't. It wasn't the fun read that I was expecting. And then Win, as a hero, he was just so underwhelming. I did not fall in love with his character. He was just there, you know? I was actually more invested in the whole friend group than the romance, which doesn't really say that many great things about the romance. We get drama with the friends about 3/4 of the way into the book, and I was like, yes, finally, something good is happening. So I am very sad this was not the 5-star read I was expecting. Happy Place was not very happy. It was kind of a sad place. And then my next pink read, this was Meet Me at the Lake by Carley Fortune. So this book, oh boy, thinking about this one makes me mad all over again. I thought Every Summer After, which was this author's debut, I thought that one was not good, but Meet Me at the Lake was somehow worse. So I did not like this one. I gave it 2 stars. I just didn't like these characters, and I was so annoyed with how the romance played out. Here we have yet another past and present alternating timeline, alternating chapter kind of book, and some authors can do it well. Carley Fortune is not one of them. I didn't like the alternating past and present in Every Summer After, and I also did not like it in Meet Me at the Lake. This is a weird book because it is sort of a second chance romance, but not really, because their first relationship, it happened literally in a day. Not even 24 hours. Fern and Will met 10 years ago. They felt a connection instantly. They spent all day and night together, though they did not sleep with each other, and they promised they would meet up exactly a year later. Fern showed up, Will did not. And for the next 10 years, Fern spends it pining over this man. Why? I don't know. I truly did not understand why she was so hung up for so long over a guy she knew for a day. Oh, and also, these two were both in relationships with other people the first time that they met, so they definitely emotionally cheated on their significant others. So that was all in the past, and then 10 years later, Fern, her mother has just died, so she is now forced to go back home to take care of her mother's struggling lakeside resort. A business consultant shows up to help get the lakeside resort up and running, and of course it is none other than Will, the guy that she loved 10 years ago, the one who stood her up, the one who ghosted her, and the one she proceeded to never stop thinking about for the next 10 years. I personally just cannot stand when a heroine is so hung up on a guy that doesn't deserve all that attention. Will, he's not a terrible guy, but he ghosted you. He's not showing any signs of pining over you, so move on, right? And then the audacity of the ending of this book. The only thing worse than a sad pining heroine is a hero who doesn't put any sort of effort into the romance or relationship. Fern was the only one doing anything for them, the only one who was always putting herself out there first, even though he definitely should have been the one to reach out first after he ghosted her. But then she had to chase after him at the end because he ran away. Just no, I could not deal with this book. All right, moving on from that mess, my next pink read was The Fiancé Farce by Alexandria Bellefleur. This one isn't quite as pink as the other books, but the dresses are pink, so I'm counting it. I also do really enjoy Alexandria Bellefleur, and I've been looking forward to this new romance of hers because it's another FF romance, but this time we have a fake engagement and a marriage of convenience. I love the concept of it because one of the heroines is a bookseller at her family's bookstore, and when she gets annoying questions asking about her love life, she gets fed up and makes up a fake girlfriend, and the name that she chooses just happens to be the cover model on this this very popular book at her bookstore. Tansy does have amazing luck though, because Gemma, the cover model, she actually shows up at Tansy's cousin's wedding. They have mutual friends or whatever, and Gemma goes along with the fake relationship. She also ends up offering a marriage of convenience to Tansy because Gemma needs a wife in order to get her inheritance, and Tansy needs money to help her struggling bookstore. These two are very sweet, occasionally very hot together, and I like them. I thought the whole fake engagement thing was great, but the only issue that I had while I was reading this one was that I had a hard time differentiating between Tansy and Gemma. It could be just me and I just was not paying attention to my audiobook, but anytime I'd read a chapter, in the middle of it I'd be like, wait, whose point of view am I reading? So I guess the main characters just didn't feel all that unique and blended together too much. There's also a lot of family drama, especially on Gemma's side, and these secondary characters were just not fun to read about. So while I like the romance, everything outside of it was not that enjoyable. So even though this could have been a 4-star read, I'm giving it 3.5. And then the final pink book that I read was unfortunately my 1-star read. This is romantic comedy by Curtis Sittenfeld. Honestly, the reason why I read this book was because it's a big and popular one. It got a ton of push and marketing from the publisher, and I have a feeling that we're gonna see it in the Goodreads Choice Awards if the rating doesn't plummet. But you guys, I truly did not know what I was getting into when I started this one. I mean, I knew going in, I had a feeling that it wasn't going to be an actual romance. It was probably going to be more fiction or women's fiction. But the publisher, again, was just pushing this book hard as a romance. I didn't trust it, but you know what? With the title called romantic comedy, you can expect readers to expect a romance, but from what I read, we barely got any. There was barely any romance, there was no comedy, and this was definitely not a rom-com, so this was 0 for 3. I actually had to DNF it after 1 chapter, and I know what you might be thinking. How can you count it as reading a book after just 1 chapter? How can you rate it after just 1 chapter? Well, let me tell you, this book is literally 3 chapters long. Chapter 1 is 128 pages, which is insane. The heroine, whose name I didn't even care to remember, she is a comedy writer for SNL, and the entirety of chapter 1 is just a play-by-play of what it's like working at SNL, writing for SNL, and this is set during 2018, so it does get political because of that year and what was going on. And then for some reason, the heroine goes on and on about being an unattractive woman and lamenting about how pretty famous women can end up with ugly men, but pretty famous men never end up with ugly women. It's never, you know, the other way around in Hollywood. So when the hero shows up, he is a pop star. The heroine judges him so hard. She looks down on him because he is good looking and famous. So this heroine was just not fun to read at all. But besides that, I literally could not give a shit about SNL here. Like, that wasn't what I wanted to read about. So this 1 chapter was just unbearable, and then 2 minutes into chapter 2 I had to DNF it and put it down. Chapter 2, by the way, takes place during COVID, and it's composed entirely of emails. And I don't know if any of you have listened to audiobooks that are composed of emails, but that shit gets so boring fast. Just imagine to blah 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 at gmail.com from blah 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 at gmail.com. Re or forward. Every single word has to be read. They have to read all the tos and froms. They can't just skip to the actual email message. And that apparently happens for the next 70 pages. So I could not deal with it and gave up. But if you have to read this one, which I would not recommend, don't do the audiobook. So yes, this was a bad read, but maybe if you know what you're getting into when you decide to read it, you might be able to adjust your expectations and maybe enjoy it more. I honestly don't know. This was just the worst. So this year my color themed reads were a flop for the most part. I only really liked 1 book, which sucks because my last 2 years were full of some great books. I mean, I guess I could include like 2 other pink books that I read earlier this year that I really liked. This was Things We Hide from the Light by Lucy Score, and then this one is Secretly Yours by Tessa Bailey. They weren't books that I read specifically for this video, but they are still new pink romances from 2023 that were actually good. So if you do want some pink books to try, here you go. Anyway, I hope you enjoyed this video. I don't think I've ever put out a video where the majority of the books that I talk about are not good reads, but hopefully you enjoyed it. It was bound to happen, right? If you have read these books, I would love to hear your thoughts. Thank you so much for watching, and I will see you all next time. Bye!